All right, so hi everyone. Welcome to this Improve Your Keywording webinar about the photos that you upload to Alamy. My name is Sophie Basilevich and I'm the Curation Manager here at Alamy. And I work with the content team and we look after all the contributors and agencies that are online with us. And we also curate content on the latest trends to share with our sales and marketing teams to share with our customers. Before that, I was a picture researcher for over 16 years, so I'm very used to knowing what it's like from the customer side in being able to find images quickly and easily. I'm really excited to be introducing my co-host today, Clemency Wright. She's the leading expert in the industry around keywording and is the founder and director of Clemency Wright Consulting. She works with both individuals and large organizations to help manage their digital assets through keywording and getting their content easily found. So as a quick overview, I'm going to start to talk about Alamy's approach to featuring authentic images and why we'd really encourage you to think carefully about how you caption and keyword your pictures. After that, I'll hand over to Clemency, who's got some really clever insights into getting your content seen, and we'll take you through some essential tips and around best practices for keywording. At the end, Clemency will also be sharing news of her brilliant new website called Make Search Better, which is a resource to help photographers like you get help with your keywording. Throughout the webinar, you'll be able to ask any questions you might have. There's a question mark in the top right corner, which is like a chat function. So feel free to ask your questions in there and we'll try and pick them up as we go. If you miss anything on this webinar, don't worry because the session is being recorded and we'll share the link at a later date and post it on our forum of where you can find it. So just quickly about this image that I've chosen here, I thought it was a really nice way to get us thinking about how we describe photos and demonstrate what we're talking about today. So it's the difference between in what a customer can see, who's like the little girl pointing at the photo, and what a photographer who also sees, but also knows about how they've taken the photo in terms of being able to identify a place or a person. So at Alamy, we have over 100,000 images being uploaded every day to the platform. So it's no surprise that we rely on each of you to keyword your own pictures. But it's not only for this reason alone. After all, you've prepared for your photo shoot, you know the subject, and you know what you photographed. So essentially, as the photographer, we trust that you're more of the expert in this than we are. We've got lots of contributors and agencies also on site. And so there's always going to be lots of competition, but that shouldn't discourage you if you shoot new and fresh content. It also really highlights why it's so important to keyword with relevant and accurate words only. Because after all, customers who are searching for images want to know what they're looking for is what it says it is, regardless of the content. And there's no gains to be made in adding words that aren't relevant to the image itself because customers will just pass over those images if it's not what they're looking for. So at Alamy, we're also committed to promoting authentic images, and we think these are made up of certain qualities. So one of them is that with you as the photographer who goes out into the real world to take photos means that there's some evidence of time and place. And this is what makes those photos original to you as the photographer. And this is something that we think AI generated images cannot claim to have. So there's no true evidence of time and place, and there's no original creator in essence. But another major quality that adds to the authenticity of an image is that the description in the captions and keywords correspond to what the image shows. So authenticity is not just about what the subject of the photo is, but also how it's described. And information that's true to the photo helps the customer make decisions about whether they want to use the image or not. So describing photos in the right way so that the photo is what it says it is really, really important because customers know what they're looking for. We don't want to mislead them. And the more accurate you can be in keywording your images, the better results in search you'll get. Of course, there are always other factors that help customers choose one image over another, even if it's of the same subject. So some customers might be looking a certain building, wanting to show a certain feature on that building, or want an image of a town square at a certain time of day. You can also add other metadata such as model release and when the photo was taken is important too. But the main point is if you caption and keyword well and give accurate contents, you'll be getting the right images in front of the right customer. So in general, that's a general overview of why it's so important to keyword properly. I'm now going to hand over to Clemency, and she's going to give some more detail and some tips and tricks that you can use when keywording for different types of images.
Thanks, Sophie. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for coming. Continuing on from what Sophie was talking about just there, just set this up for you. So today's discussion is all about keywording. We've got quite a lot to cover, so forgive me if it feels like I'm rushing. Just want to let you know that this has been recorded and you can ask questions during the presentation, but there will be Q&A at the end as well. And there's going to be a moment during today's session where we do some interactive work together. So of course, ask questions at that point as well. So broadly speaking, today we're talking about keywords, types of keywords, metadata fields, which you may already be familiar with in Alamy. We'll have a keywording session, which I've mentioned is interactive, and then a little mention at the end about Make Search Better, which is a new platform for you that you might find useful to have a look. There's free content on there, which will help you further with your keywording journey and build on what we're going to cover quite quickly in today's session. So just to kind of really start off with a bold statement, but you know, search engines, including Alamy and Google, can't actually see your images. They can only read the keywords that we add. So every time we add a keyword, it's a little flag, a little pointer in the right direction to help that image become searchable. And equally, if we don't add a keyword that's important, then that image simply won't be found by the Alamy search engine. And this is how keywords work in a very simple way. We have a kind of input-output situation. So you think about the middle of this image being where your keywords sit on a photograph. We are adding keywords in as photographers that are relevant, accurate and consistent. And we do this to classify, but also optimize access to those images. Equally, those same keywords will be used to create the output. So when a customer is searching, they want to either retrieve the content, they want to search using specific keywords or themes or concepts, or they might just simply be on the search engine to discover content. And we don't always know, of course, what the customer will be looking for. So we have to think about keywords in quite a creative way, thinking literally and laterally about how we can kind of marry the metadata and keywords we add to the image so that the customer ultimately can retrieve the image. So as Sophie mentioned, the key principles to my mind when I'm keywording are to make sure my keywords are relevant, make sure that they are accurate, and to try and do this consistently. And the reason for that is because, as I've mentioned, the search engine 100% relies on the keywords that we're adding to retrieve content. So we're thinking about how can the keyword match a potential search query? And all that means is how might a customer search? What will they actually type in to Alamy to find a picture like yours? So when you're looking at your pictures, batches of pictures or individual images, think about what's most relevant and think about how you can phrase that in a way that is most likely to match the way a customer actually searches. So what are the words they type in? What are the phrases that they use? Now, Sophie's also mentioned Alamy's commitment to authentic content, and I do believe that accuracy plays a big part in this, because when we keyword, we're really saying that we understand exactly what the image shows, and as photographers you do, you know when it was taken and where it was taken, and this can all build a huge amount of trust which is obviously linked to the authenticity values that Alamy has as a library, and also you have for promoting your own content. So when you're adding keywords, please try to remember that the more accurate you are with them, the more trust you can build with your audience, and this will help to obviously boost your rankings in the search engine. It will also drive future custom, because they'll probably come back, search for your content if they feel they can trust you and rely on your metadata. And finally, if we can do these two things consistently, then it obviously impacts very positively on the user experience. You know, customers will come back, they'll come back to Alamy, they'll come back to your content in particular, and they'll feel that they can build, you know, a relationship with your work. They'll want to see refreshed work, new work that's being uploaded. And this all helps with the user experience overall. So it's only a good thing to apply these principles when you're keywording. So when you're thinking about, okay, Clemency, what is relevant? How do we know what to add? There is a kind of visual hierarchy that we all naturally lean towards. So, you know, this graphic kind of shows that your eye is naturally drawn to perhaps the most prominent, largest element of an image or a graphic. And then you kind of read down from there. And I think we do this to some extent with images. We want to know what's the most obvious, prominent, noticeable aspect of an image, because if we can keyword that, then we can actually cater for the types of search queries that customers are most typically going to do. So if you can think about a visual hierarchy in your approach to keywording, that will help you with a mindset of always focusing on what's most prominent, what's most relevant, what stands out. And again, thinking like a customer means we can improve the customer user experience, which is really good for your ranking within a very large competitive pool of content such as Alamy. So you could ask yourself who your typical customer is. Who do you think they are? You know, are they using complex language, simple language? What region are they in? And we'll get into some of the nitty-gritty aspects of that later on. You can ask what they would be searching for. What would your target customer most likely be looking for in terms of content? And also, how do they search? So what language are they using? Are they specialists, experts, archival researchers, or are they working for a magazine or a newspaper? So thinking about your customer and the language they use can really help shape the language that you use when you're adding your keywords. So going back to the idea of visual hierarchy, again, to put this into a kind of graphic funnel shape, we would typically start with who is in the image if people are pictured, what is in the image, again, what is most noticeable and prominent, where or when, if relevant, is the image taken. Then we think about what does this mean? So what are the associations with those things? And we'll look at examples. If you're unsure what I mean by associations, we're going to look at some specific examples in just a short while. And finally, concepts. Although at the bottom of the funnel and probably the smallest set of keywords you might add, they are actually incredibly important. And I've got an example to share with you where concepts have sold content above and beyond any of the other types of keywords that we could be adding. So it's just something to bear in mind in terms of filling out all the layers of keywords that you can add to an image to really optimize access and visibility. Now, I'm not checking questions myself. I know Sophie's got that covered, but please do let me know, Sophie, if anybody has a question that it would be really important to address as we work through the presentation.
Yeah, don't worry, they're Alamy related at the moment, so I'm going to pick them up when we get to those points. But yeah, great. Sorry, carry on.
Okay, yeah, as I mentioned, I've got quite a bit to work through, so I hope the pace is okay for people, but you know, we can get back to anything at the end if we've missed something. So visual hierarchy, again, we're now building up our knowledge of, we're trying to think about what's relevant, what's accurate, we're trying to be consistent, and we're trying to think about the visual hierarchy of what's most prominent and then right down to the finer details of what the concepts could be. So here's an example, one of my images. I'm not a photographer. This is a snap taken, I will let you know, around Kielder Water up here in Northumberland near where I live. So this is my daughter. So if we were thinking about literally who is in the picture, we could be saying something very basic like child or girl. If we have more information about the person, which I do, I could say she's Caucasian, and I could say she's, 7 to 8 years old. So this again depends on you as a photographer, your knowledge of your own content and how accurate you can take this when adding your keywords. So what is in the image? Now, again, the visual hierarchy means that we might be drawn to different things. Now, some of you might be drawn more to the child and the child's hand, perhaps the face, but thinking like a customer, which is one of the key principles that I'm trying to promote here, we need to think about what is, happening in the picture. And this, as we can see, is the child blowing the dandelion, the dandelion head. Now, interestingly, something like this can be quite tricky to keyword when we know that some customers might search for dandelion head, or perhaps dry dandelion, or seed head. There's all these variations to think about. So this is, as I say, a snapshot of keywords that you could add, but there's always opportunities to optimize them further and think about other phrases and ways of expressing the same thing that a customer might use when they come to query the search engine. So for now, we'll just go with dandelion and seed. That's fine. Again, where is the image taken? Now, I can be accurate and I could say in the keywords, this was taken in Kielder. Whether or not that's hugely relevant, if you want a picture of Kielder water, would be, that's a judgment call that you would make as a photographer. Personally, I might add this in the caption. I might not add it in the keywords. I might add it in the location field, for example, which we'll get to later on, which is actually an optional field for you to use in Alamy if you want to. But for now, if I'm thinking about the location of this particular image, I might just go with something quite basic like water. You could say this was taken in summertime if you feel that this is hugely relevant. Again, this is something we'd want to discuss perhaps and think about in more detail. And the why, this again, going back to my previous slide, is about other ways to optimize access. And as we know, a lot of people search for concepts. The why of the image is, why do we feel this image tells a story? Why do we think someone might want to use it? Why might someone search for childhood, and would they want to find an image like this? So where we have concepts like nature, childhood, discovery, they can open up doors and different options for customers searching on Alamy. We know from the search logs that they do search for concepts. So it's just another layer of keywords for you to consider and to think about your images in a conceptual way if they lend themselves to that and if you feel these are relevant. Okay. So relevancy, again, you'll hear me talk a lot about this. Focus on what's visually prominent. Try to avoid describing things in too much detail if they're just incidental, because that can actually cause confusion and that can be frustrating for customers. So, if we were going to add that tag Kielder to the image, and in a few thousand images of Kielder water, would that image stand out as a strong example? I think that's something we need to kind of really seriously think about. So focus on what's prominent, try to avoid anything that's a bit borderline or incidental. And remember, caption is also searchable, so you can always add context within the caption field if you don't feel it's worthy of a keyword. Now, these images are a couple of images by a photographer who's a food photographer called Emma Dunham. And she has allowed me to use these in previous workshops where we've looked at relevant keywords to decide which ones you would add and which ones you wouldn't add. So here's a snapshot of keywords that you could add that I would suggest are all relevant. This would give you a total of 40 keywords, and as you may or may not be aware, Alamy will allow up to 50 keywords, so you've got plenty of space. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that side of things, it's always good to add the right number of keywords to make that image fully searchable and visible. This could be 10, 15 keywords, it might be 50 keywords, but there isn't a set number. It's a question that always comes up, so I'm sure we'll get to that in the Q&A. But for now, this image just happens to have 40 relevant keywords. You might start to see some interesting things here. We've got keywords about, let's say, something very specific like the tattoo on the person's arm, for example. And you might think, well, for an image for food, is it really about a tattoo? But the fact is, with hundreds of thousands of images of food, we're going to have gourmet food in classic settings. We're going to have wedding food, we're going to have buffet food, barbecue food, lots of different permutations of food. So if you're looking for something a little bit more edgy, you know, something to appeal to a specific younger audience, for example, and you actually want chefs serving food with something that indicates, you know, something a little bit different, individual, then that tattoo keyword can actually be useful. So you might kind of start to look at keywords and question, would you add these yourself? Do you know when something's relevant or not? But you will get the hang of this as we move through today's session, especially when we get to the keywording session that we'll do together. So as I mentioned, with hundreds of thousands of images of food, we want to be as specific as we can. So one tip is to think if an ingredient is very prominent visually, then you can add a food ingredient as your keyword. And if you can differentiate between sets of images within a batch or across, you know, the Alamy collection, if you can differentiate using keywords to help an image stand out, then I would suggest doing that. And it should help your image become more highly ranked in the search engine. Another example, travel. I know maybe many of you do travel photography as well. So obviously the main thing to do with your travel imagery is to be accurate. So even ahead of relevancy is, where is the location? Where was this taken? Again, Emma had come up to Northumberland and she'd photographed Lindisfarne Castle. And you can see just on the first couple of lines there, quite a number of tags or keywords related to specifically to the location. And of course, the reason for this is Alamy is a free text search engine, which means that for each of those keywords, this image will be searchable. They're not necessarily linked to each other. So although Lindisfarne Castle is on Holy Island, you wouldn't get this picture if you just added Holy Island and someone searched Lindisfarne. You'd actually have to add that in addition. Some of you may be familiar with what we call a hierarchy or a controlled vocabulary, and I'm going to show you an example of that in a minute. If you're not familiar, then this basically means if you are keywording travel imagery, you will need to add the entire kind of string of keywords related to that specific location. So including what county it's in, the region, the country, and the continent. So just building up that hierarchy manually on Alamy will automatically help increase visibility to your content. So again, the top tip for travel would be to include geographical, hierarchical location keywords and synonyms. So for example, we might have United Kingdom. Some people will search with that spelled out in full. Other customers will just search UK. And of course on Alamy, if you test this out for yourself, you will get different results. So I would always advise to add both examples. They are synonymous, they mean the same thing, but this again will help open up and broaden visibility and access to your images. So to summarize, accurate keywords, they allow customers to rely on the information that you're giving them. They're relying on that information being accurate, which is obviously going to help with your repeat business, your repeat custom, and building up that trust and loyalty of your customer base. It's always assumed that the image result is exactly what the customer asked for. So as I said, every keyword you add is potentially a keyword that they may put into the search box. So it's always assumed that what comes back is accurate and true, and you just need to do a sense check on your own keywording to make sure you're always providing that quality of service through keywords. build trust and loyalty, which obviously can drive sales. Inaccurate keywords can impact negatively on the user experience, and it can affect your ranking. So the flip side of being accurate and giving high quality keywords is that when you don't do that, you may find that your images start to unfortunately fall down in the search page results. So my 2 top tips for accuracy would be avoid adding conflicting information. So for example, we do see sometimes different geographical locations added to one image. We might have Thailand and Japan, for example, if it's a food image close up and it looks like it could be one or the other. Don't do that, because this will just confuse and frustrate customers. Sunrise and sunset is a classic stock photo issue that we've faced throughout the years, where people aren't sure, they might add both. And I don't know if any of you shoot for a lot of travel guides and this kind of thing. They will specify whether they want to see the view at sunrise or sunset. And if a picture researcher comes on and uses those keywords and the results are not accurate, then this can lead to, you know, in some cases it can lead to legal implications. So you want to just be careful around things like that. And again, with things like specialist content, so maybe scientific content or archival content, make sure you're using the accurate terminology. You can use basic language and scientific language interchangeably. You can always include both, and I think this is the best approach. If you've got a scientific term, like a Latin term for a species of plant or animal, then it's always advisable to add that as well as the common term as well, because as I've mentioned, we can't ever really predict who the customer is and how exactly they'll search, but we do know you'll get different search results depending on which tag is entered into the search box. So we've had a look at accurate keywords or accuracy and what we're aiming for there, and relevancy, visual hierarchy, what's prominent and that kind of thing. How on earth do we do this consistently? Because as I've already mentioned, the more consistent you are, the more trust you will earn, the more likely you are to be searched, to come up in the search results, which obviously, you know, boosts you in the rankings. So all good, but how do we make sure we can do this consistently? Alamy is a free text search engine, which means that what you type in is what will be shown on the website. So a basic thing for you to keep an eye on is spelling. Make sure you're getting your spellings correct. Because it's free text, as I mentioned earlier with the example of Lindisfarne, it doesn't know how that keyword links to other related keywords. So it's up to you as a photographer to add hierarchical terms. The example being Lindisfarne, it's Holy Island, it's Northumberland, it's England, UK, Europe, etc. So if you can add those, that will make your search prominence more consistent, because it means that you'll come up whether they've gone for Northumberland or specific term Holy Island. You know, you'll always come up in the relevant search results by adding hierarchical keywords. Plurals and synonyms are also needed on Alamy because it doesn't actually operate stemming. Now, this is a question we'd had before the webinar, but stemming is basically where it will automate a plural for the person searching. Alamy doesn't do that. So if you have, you know, let's say a row of cats, you know, on a wall, you would be advised to add cats with an S as well as cat, because if someone searches on cats and you haven't added the plural, then your image won't come up, unfortunately. So plurals, synonyms, you know, words that have the same meaning for another word, all need to be added, given that it's a free text search engine. Keywording free text can require, often does require, that you add more keywords, but the flip side is that this improves the opportunity to attract more customers, and I'll show you some examples of what I mean by that in just a moment. Use compound keywords. Hi.
Can I just that? Yeah, I was just going to say, is that a good opportunity to talk about how we've got US customers as well as English customers? So something that comes up is, you know, is it worth keywording colour with the English spelling with the U in it and the American spelling? And I would say it definitely is to think about, you know, American English spelling as well as UK spelling. So again, yeah. So that means you'll be reaching customers in the US as well. He might be just typing in colour without the U.
That's right, yeah. So a few questions came in this morning around language. So the first point is, as Sophie says, UK and US English variants are definitely worth adding. So if you have a couch and sofa and settee, they're all worth adding because each one of those will get different search results. So go ahead and add them all. With a spelling like colour, or another Americanism that doesn't have the U, it's always best to add that as well as the English variation with the U. And just to mention quickly, Sophie, while we're on this, keywording in the German and French regions, that's automatically translated by Alamy, so don't worry about that. The keywords will be added in UK English. If you want to add the American variations, that is absolutely fine. But ultimately, for the customers searching in the French and German regions, that translation work is done by Alamy, so there is no need for you to translate them into those foreign languages. Just talking about English for now. And yeah, to reiterate, adding US spelling variations is highly beneficial on the Alamy search engine. So equally, there are a few other kind of questions that came in around things like capital letters, full stops, hyphens, and things like that. I think I might not go there right now and move through the presentation. We'll come back to those things at the end if that's okay. So compound keywords are a big fan of mine on Alamy in particular, because they do allow for granularity more so than other libraries that operate a controlled vocabulary. I mentioned this, a controlled vocabulary being a way of structuring your keywords into a kind of hierarchical list where one keyword is related to a parent term. We find this in taxonomy for animals and plants, for example. Now, what's great about compound keywords is that you can actually add a couple of words together, a string of words, or even a phrase. And actually, if someone searches on Alamy website with double quotation marks, they can go straight to those results. Whereas this isn't really an option on libraries like Getty, for example, because their keywords are controlled in the back end of the system. And that can actually reduce the spectrum of keyword opportunities for a customer searching. I'll show you what I mean by that, because it's kind of a little bit confusing if you're not sure about how the search engine works. So here's another example, one of my pictures. So the Alamy free text tool will allow for a single keyword. For example, you might just add girl or beach, but also compound words. So I could add a keyword girl playing. I could even add a keyword girl playing on beach. Remember, keywords are separated by a comma. So if I was to literally type girl playing, comma, beach, comma, that would actually be two keywords as far as Alamy search engine is concerned. But we know that if girl playing is added as a keyword and a customer uses the double quotation marks, it's more likely that this image will come back. So it's actually a really good way of optimizing your visibility by thinking about where compound keywords are relevant and going to be really helpful in making that image more visible. It's not the case for every single thing, but you'll start to get the hang of it, and we'll use more examples in the keywording session. So also you can add combinations of multiple words and even phrases. So I'm just suggesting, don't be shy of adding one word at a time separated by a comma. Think about a word like bucket and spade. It's a great keyword. It's a typical sort of keyword that people would struggle to find images for, because they might just get buckets on construction sites or spades, digging in the garden. So if we can add bucket and spade, comma, beach, comma, girl, then this actually does help direct customers to this specific image without having to kind of trawl through lots of pictures of construction sites and people digging in the garden. So hopefully that does help. It helps you sort of understand that Alamy is actually more flexible in many ways than some of the other large picture libraries. One of the main reasons why I actually love keywording in Alamy. So here's an example. It's actually a bad screenshot, but hopefully you can see the hierarchy here. When I'm talking about hierarchy keywords, it's simply a way for you to group keywords together. And some of you are probably doing this already in Lightroom or creating keyword lists of your own. It's particularly helpful if you shoot the same kind of content. So if you're always doing animals or locations, you can create a keyword hierarchy. And this will help speed up your keywording process. It will therefore improve consistency for when you're adding keywords, but also that will improve consistency for people searching on the Alamy website. And this can often be built into some of the other image libraries. It's not in the case of Alamy, but I hope that I've just explained what you could do about that by using synonyms, by using other keyword combinations to replicate this idea of a hierarchy. The example in Lindisfarne was a good one for that. So again, back to the same image. So just to reiterate, really, if you just add the keyword girl to the picture, then it makes the image searchable for girl. But because girl isn't kind of linked to another keyword, there's no hierarchy to support this, we would also need to add child and female. Again, we might want to add her age and ethnicity if we know what they are ourselves as photographers. So just remember really that you want to try and create access to the image in many different ways, not being able to preempt exactly which one of those keywords a customer will search for. We're kind of trying to serve up all the possibilities whilst remaining relevant and accurate. So the tip here would to be add related hierarchical terms, because this broadens access and supports customers who are searching in different ways. Super tags, I'm not going to have too much time to talk about these, but I'm sure you know what they are. You are allowed to assign up to 10 super tags per image. You might notice that by adding 10 super tags, your image becomes more discoverable. That's not something I'm talking about today, but it does mean that super tags really denote what the most prominent elements of your image are. So one way to approach this is by, when you caption your image and you're describing exactly what the image shows, pulling out some of those key terms that stand out as you know, being most prominent in the caption. They will often be the ones that are most visually prominent. So in this example, we'd definitely be adding things like Lindisfarne Castle, Holy Island, fishing boat, and also we want to make sure that this is searchable for more broad topic-based or conceptual-based keyword searches. So for example, travel, destination, these types of keywords are really useful to add as super tags, because they will again boost visibility to this image over other images that don't perhaps utilize super tags. So long and the short of it is, utilize your super tags, and you have up to 10. There is loads more information about all of this stuff in Make Search Better, and you'll get the link for that at the end, and you can go and have a look yourselves. But you know, it's all covered in there if you want more information. So the top tip for super tags is it does open up alternative ways to find content. It means that an image like this can be searchable if a customer chooses a travel destination or a Northumberland landmark or historic building or a coastal castle. So we're being very, very specific and saying, well, it's Lindisfarne Castle, but also just adding the keyword castle, coastal, that automatically makes it searchable for a really broad search for coastal castles, which could be anywhere in the UK. So obviously we're trying to cater for the different types of customers that we have coming to Alamy. So in terms of concepts, it may be that you don't add very many concepts, but they're equally as important, because we know that they do sell images as well as the visual attributes. So the visual attributes being, you know, it's the fishing boat, it's Lindisfarne Castle, but the concept could be, you know, it's around vacation, for example, holiday, that kind of thing. So we want to add concepts where we feel they're relevant. And it does add another layer of accessibility, and it also kind of opens up your content to the type of picture buyers who search conceptually. Here's a great example from Philip Entiknap, who is an Alamy contributor. I've used this slide many times in keywording workshops. Basically, Philip has added the most visually prominent keywords that you could add: red arrows, aircraft, and display, and his words, but the common keywords are not enough. Lateral thinking is called for, and in actual fact, the image sold for the keywords team and trust. So in this particular example, first of all, go ahead and add all the visually prominent keywords that you would need to fully optimize access to the picture. then go one layer ahead, you know, go a little step further and add concepts if you find that they are relevant, because this is another way that we know, especially creative picture researchers on Alamy will search. Again, it's just adding that little kind of layer of icing on top of the cake. A quick word about the fields in Alamy. Metadata fields, we have two types. We have mandatory, as listed here. This means you need to complete each one of these fields in order for your image to go on sale. With keywords, you must actually add one keyword, but you have up to 50, and within there you can add 10 super tags. This provides the most basic level of searchability. If you do this, your image will most likely be found. Will it be sold? Well, that would depend on the image, whether it fits the brief, many things, but it will be more likely to be sold if you fully optimize these fields, as I've said, going up to 10 super tags and making sure all your keywords are relevant and accurate before thinking, oh, I want to fill up the 50 quota. That's not the aim with keywording. The aim is most definitely to add the fewer number if a fewer number is more relevant. That's the key focus for your keywording process. To go one step forward, further than that, you can add optional metadata fields. It's a separate tab in your Alamy upload tool. There are 11 fields listed here. I mentioned I use the location field quite often, and I always use number of people because this can, again, boost visibility to your image. So if you have an image showing one person, you can add one person, one child, one girl as keywords by all means, but you can also, in the optional fields, select from the drop down one person, which can help with your visibility on Alamy. And it does provide an additional layer of searchability. So talking about keywords and the type of content you're making, and tying in with what Sophie was saying at the very beginning of today's talk, we know from research carried out that 63% of people buy from brands that represent people like themselves. So this is great if you're photographing lifestyle imagery and you're depicting people and you're depicting diverse people, then this is a great thing to bear in mind. Equally, 71% say it's important that the companies they buy from celebrate diversity. So what this means in terms of stock photography is we are going to see more diverse content representing more diverse groups, underrepresented groups, marginalized groups. But then that does leave us with a slight problem of metadata and how do we get around that, because of course the trust is earned and the brands creating the authentic imagery will grow their audiences when they support that message with accessible language. Accessibility and diversity is a whole other topic. It may or may not impact your work if you're specializing in animals or food or, you know, still life. It may not impact you too much. If you are photographing people or conceptual imagery, then maybe a little bit more so. And again, this is the kind of topic area that we have to go into a lot more detail with, which you can have a look at Make Search Better and dig deeper into these themes if you wish. So we'll do a live keywording session, and we don't have too much time, but we have enough time to do this together. So what I'm going to do now is just dip out of here. Bear with me. And Sophie, as I do this, can you just let me know if we have any questions?
Yeah, we've had quite a few, which is great because everyone's like really interested. So I can be chatting about, so we've had a question about captions and super tags or regular keywords and where we should put them. But yeah, just to pick up on that thing you were saying about super tags, it's really important that if you do super tag 10 keywords, then that means that that will have more weighting in the search results for that image. So if we were taking that example of the boat in Lindisfarne, obviously the boat was really prominent. So we'd put that at the front of the search. But say if there were some clouds in the picture that were just sort of in the background and it's not actually a picture of clouds, you wouldn't put the super tag on that. So yeah, and then I'll pick up another one. So our captions searched in the same way as keywords. So again, yeah, it's good to if it's good to write good captions, because that will help the customer understand what the image is of, you know, because again, you know, it's not always obvious that, you know, you might know you've taken a photo in Greece or somewhere, but they're trusting you that that's where it says it is. So again, that there is a search on captions if it's not in the keywords. Anyway, Clemency, carry on with your.
Yeah, absolutely. So super tags are ranked highly. So again, we always aim to have 10 super tags, and I'm convinced that every image can at least have 10 keywords, so if necessary make them all super tags. But yeah, if as Sophie says, if we're looking for what's most relevant and prominent in the image to keyword it, then there's a fair chance that will warrant being a super tag when you get to that stage of the keywording process. So I'm just checking, Sophie, are we seeing the image and the portal here now?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
yeah.
Great. Okay, so again, it's another one of my pictures. Apologies, I'm not a photographer, but it's quite a cute picture. Now I mentioned when you're starting keywording, there's a few things I've mentioned today so far that will make hopefully more sense as we do this. What I thought I'd do is quickly whiz through this image myself and talk you through my keywording process. I've got some notes just off to the side, so I'll be checking those and adding my keywords in, and then we'll have time to do one together, which will be an opportunity for you to think about what keywords you would add and start jotting down a few keywords that you would add yourself. So just starting off with this picture as a demonstration, really, we talked about mandatory and optional fields. So you can just see here now as I hover over, it's defaulting to mandatory. These fields all need to be completed for your image to go on sale. Optional are optional. However, I would endeavour to complete as many of these as you can. You've got options here for categories, number of people, as I mentioned. And again, these are broken down in different resources in Make Search Better. If you're not sure about how they work and why you should add them and how you should add them, just go and have a look there. But for now, mandatory keywords. Obviously, you've got your pseudonym, that's the first thing. Caption needs to be added. It's in free text, so I'll just type that in, young girl. And I'm going to explain when I finish typing why I'm adding what I'm adding. Right, so I've added a caption here which reads, young girl standing on grass hill wearing sundress with hat with arms out. Now, you're kind of already starting to see which keywords jump out at you from the caption as to which keywords you could be adding in here. I have sometimes even copied and pasted a caption into this field to add them in, but for now I'm going to start with the prominent keywords from my caption that I know are essential for this image to be found. So girl standing grass hill. Now, this is just to get you into one way of working to make sure you don't miss any keywords that are important, but we're obviously going to go back and embellish this. If I type them all in one go with commas between them and hit return, it will separate them out where the commas fell. So that's a pretty quick way of adding keywords. But obviously, I want to add many more keywords to this picture, and I might add them one at a time. So I might add them just by typing one keyword in and hitting enter. I might add, let's say sky, and hit the cross button. It's the same thing. Now, so building this up, I'm always going to start with my caption because that gets me into the mindset of thinking, how am I describing this picture? Because the way I describe it is the way someone is most likely to search to find an image like this. We're focusing on the key, prominent, relevant visual elements. So these have now been added as keywords, but already we know from the previous presentation that we need to keep going with our keywords because girl isn't linked to any other keywords about people. So I also want to add child. I might want to add her age. I might want to add her ethnicity because I know that, and again, don't have time to go into the details here, but if you do have a model release, if you have spoken to the talent and you know their ethnicity, their sexual orientation, complex areas, I talk about them a lot in Make Search Better, but if you know that information and it's verifiable, then you can add that as an accurate tag. It can be helpful for picture researchers. So also I talked about number of people. So one person can be added as a keyword here. I might think, well, people search for one child or one girl. Now, compound keywords are really beneficial on Alamy. So I'm going to add those all as one keyword each. So now this image is becoming searchable for someone who types in one child, one girl, one person. You'll see the bar moves up the more keywords you add. Again, it's not something we can really go into today, but the more relevant keywords that are added, the more searchable the image will become. So glancing over at my list, what else is going on in the picture? We've looked at the who at the top of the funnel when we were thinking about who, what, where, when, why. We're now looking at things that we can see other than the person. So we have hat applied, but we might say this is a good sun hat. It's a bucket hat, you know, it's a typical sun hat on a sunny day. So we might add that because some customers will search generically for hats, but some will want specific sun hats. We added sundress, but we didn't add dress. Thinking about synonyms, I would like to encourage you to add both. So dress and sundress will get different results on the Alamy search engine because it's free text. So if they're both good keywords and relevant, and we think that this image might suit a customer who's looking for a girl wearing a dress, then we absolutely need to add girl wearing dress. And equally, if we think it's a good sundress picture, then we need to add girl wearing sundress. Arms out is another way we could say that. I often just ask myself, how else could I say that? So arms outstretched is another good keyword we could add there. Okay, so if we're moving very quickly actually, but who, what, where, again, basic standard keywords are very helpful for customers indoors and outdoors. And again, outside is a synonym for outdoors, so I'd be looking to add both of those. I think I added hill and grass, so that's okay. And that's not to say hill and grass are ever going to be super tags, because they're not really about the hill, they're not about the grass, but it is about the girl with her arms out in the hat. So I'm already starting to form an idea of what my super tags might be. So I'm just going to rattle through now with some other standard keywords that I would add to this picture. I would add day as opposed to night. I think in this case summer, because I'm now thinking about when is this image taken. We've done the who, the what, the where. It's kind of like, is she on vacation? Do you think that's a good keyword? Would you expect to see a picture like that? Is it useful? I might go back and remove it if I want. If I did want to remove a keyword, I would just simply cross the cross on the next to the keyword itself would allow me to remove that keyword. But for now, I'll leave it in. I'll add in the American and the British variations as previously discussed. Now, I've actually got more concepts for this picture than I have any other type of keyword. So I'm going to type them in and just read them out as I type them in, because we don't have a lot of time. Childhood, fun, confidence, innocence. I feel like I'm on countdown reading out the letters that Carol Vorderman used to put up. Freedom, carefree, vitality. Now, if I am making any typos because I'm typing fast, I need to correct the spelling, because as I mentioned, spelling matters on Alamy. Fresh air.
Yeah, someone did ask that and said, should I put in misspellings because customers might accidentally spell something wrong? So I would definitely say no, spell correctly. Because yeah.
When we might do it is with things like millennium, accommodation, and Mississippi. They're always ones that people struggle with, and I think it's okay to add, you know, common misspellings for those, but we don't condone like you know, keywording in ways that, you know, randomly people spell things wrong. We do try and stick to generally the correct spelling. You'll see on this one here, I've added playful, play, and playing, because again, they all behave differently on the search engine, and I would like this picture to come up for you know, people searching for girls playing, girls you know, playful childhood imagery and those kinds of searches. Individuality, I hope I am saying this correctly, and great outdoors. So I've actually got around 10 concepts for that picture, because other than the girl standing on the hill with her arms out, how many people are actually going to search for that very specific string of keywords? They are more likely to search for things like girls on holiday, girls in summer, children playing, you know, and I'm thinking about it in this way. I'm trying to be a bit more out the box, lateral thinking, a bit more creative perhaps with my concepts. Some of the keywords you might want to think about are the more technical aspects. So front view and full length could be useful here. So again, I'm moving through who, what, where, when, why, anything else. So any other technical keywords that could help narrow down search results, because if we've got over 200 million assets on Alamy, we want people to be able to search, you know, and narrow down as much as they can. So copy space might be useful here. And again, copy space without the space is useful here on Alamy, because the space on Alamy is understood by the search engine, and I'll give you a bit of information about that in just a moment. And one that springs to my mind is symmetry for this image.
Thanks, Clemency. These are really, really good examples. I think I'm just aware of time, that perhaps we should move on to the next slide. But yeah,
Cool.
it's really great, and I think hopefully people have got the idea there about, you know, again, what they could then press the star for and super tag, you know, the
Yes,
prominent feature of the image, which is the girl, and the, you know, that kind of thing.
For the super tags, I would definitely select the girl, arms out, and I would also go with some of the concepts in this example, because I do feel, like I said, that people will equally search conceptually for that. So we might not have too much time now to look at the other image, but if we do have a little bit of time, oh, let me just clear my selection. Let's look at this picture. Perhaps if people are interested and they're still with us on the call, because I have covered so much information, if people want to either now, if they want to hang on for a minute or two, do this, or do this afterwards and follow up by email, that's absolutely fine. Jot down some keywords for this picture that you could come back to on the replay even, and share with me your ideas, thoughts, suggestions for keywords, questions and queries based on any of the other keywords that we've been discussing, or quick keywords that I used on the previous slide, and have a go at this yourself. So how would you actually caption this picture? What would you say is most relevant? What would you want to draw attention to? What would you not want to draw attention to? How would you compile a caption that then leads on to your keyword set? How would you tackle the fact that there's nobody in this picture? So we're thinking about who, what, where, when, why. How would you apply that principle to an image like this with no people? And equally, this image may have more technical keywords than the previous one. Is there any way that you would describe the scene, you know, the time of day, anything else that you think could be prominent here? So I'm not going to have time, unfortunately, to keyword this one for you, but I would just encourage you, feel free to have a go with this image yourself. Send in your suggestions, and perhaps I could follow up, Sophie, with a kind of review of what I keyworded the picture like, and people could play a bit of keyword bingo if they like at home, and tick off ones they got, or query ones they didn't apply, or, you know, do it that way. So I'm hoping that that could be a workaround in this case.
Yeah, we can post something on the forum afterwards, and we can use that example and get people thinking and adding their comments. So we can pick that up after.
Yeah, that'd be really good. I'd love to see what people think, and how they, you know, how they tackle that picture. So key takeaways from today: remember, each keyword applied is a potential search result, so always add what's relevant. Try and think like a customer, use their language, and that will be, you know, in all senses, UK, US, English language, different words and synonyms and all those things we've talked about. Prioritize super tags, because they are going to make the image more prominent in the search results. Use stemming, plurals, compound terms, synonyms where necessary. Further optimize access to your images through concepts. And there aren't really any right or wrong keywords. It always depends on context, and you know your images better than anyone. So I hope that these tips and tricks that we've been through today will help you in further optimizing based on the information that you have to hand. Make Search Better is a new platform that I've just launched today. It's exclusive to Alamy at the moment, and you can go on there and find free tools, and you can find membership options as well, but the benefits include the free newsletter. We have tailored plans just for Alamy photographers and other stock libraries. We're going to have a monthly Q&A for people to come on and ask their specific questions, which I will be leading, and I will answer those for you live. But there's also lots of instructional videos, tutorials, and downloadable resources as well. If you are interested, you can go to makesearchbetter.com. There is a free plan. You just need to put your email address in, and then if you're interested in accessing some of the documents I mentioned, then the membership costs £8 per month. But for Alamy photographers, you can have 50% discount for 12 months. So just go ahead and use that code Alamy50 to activate 50% off. And also just email me if you've got any other questions about today or Make Search Better. It's support@makesearchbetter.com. Questions? I'm going to move through to
We've had tons of questions. No, that's all right. You can move to the last slide.
Yeah,
I think what we might do.
It has gone over a little bit, so I'm going to put you in capable hands now to deal with as you wish. And I'm sure we've lost some people, but if you're still around, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed talking to you today, and I'm always available. Just contact me at support@makesearchbetter with any questions.
No, it's brilliant, Clemency, and you know there are so many great tips and tricks there, and yeah, I think it's been really useful, insightful session. So we have had lots of questions. I can see that some of them have already been answered, you know, as you've gone through the talk. But what I think we might do is we're going to compile all these, and then we'll post them on the forum when we share the link to the talk that's been recorded. And then that way you can go back and quietly read, you know, what we've answered, and hopefully it will cover all the questions off, because yeah, there's a lot to cover and it's a lot to think about. But yeah, I think it's been a really great session. So I'm going to wrap up now. But yeah, again, if you've got any specific queries, you can email the Alamy Contributor Relations team at contributors@alamy.com. And Clemency, yeah, check out her new website, which looks really amazing. And you can email her at support@makesearchbetter.com. Thank you again so much to my co-host Clemency in sharing her valuable insights into best practices on keywording, and thank you all who could make it today. We really hope it's been useful, and that this means you'll get more of your images seen in front of the right customers. And if you want to revisit any of the advice given here, the session has been recorded, and again we'll share the link on the forum, on the Alamy forum, so you can find where that is, and we'll cover off any questions that we didn't cover today. So thank you everyone again for attending, and I'll see you all soon.